Hey everyone, I hope you're doing all right. If you could leave me a hi and let me know if you can hear me and if the stream is looking fine. Sorry about the different location today. I am not at home. Today we're celebrating Eid, which is the end of the month of fasting of Ramadan for us. So I'm visiting my in-laws, and yeah, I'm just in a different location at the moment. I'm not in my craft room. Um, Brilliant. Thank you so much for letting me know, Arlene. I hope you guys are doing all right. Let me know in the comments where you guys are tuning in from. So, a little bit about me. My name is Tanya, and I am based here in the UK. And it is 8:30 p.m. here, so it's quite dark, and I've got the lights switched on, and I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you guys. And yeah, really excited about this event. And thank you so much, Beth. I hope that it was useful, and I really enjoyed putting together my little swatch book for you guys as well. I you don't necessarily have to use the swatch book that I shared, which is the free download. I'll just bring it up here on my phone. But you can download the swatch book because towards the end of it, I share some really relevant questions that you can use to find out a little bit more about your mediums. Things like, how does this medium perform on black or white paper and things like that. Those are the kind of things that I talk about in my video. Let me know if you've had a chance to go through my video yet. So Jane says, what kind of paper do I prefer? Now, that's a trick question. The kind of paper I prefer would depend on what kind of project I'm doing. So for my swatching, I would use a thick cardstock, which I get from a local family-owned business over here called Lime Tree Crafts. But it's very, very similar to heavyweight Nina Solar White, and that's my preference. And for printmaking, I prefer Canson paper, and there's Strathmore paper as well. And for card making, I prefer the Nina Solar White myself as well. So it's about different papers for different purposes, if that kind of makes sense. I hope that answered your question. Do you always swatch manually as you did in the video, or have you used stamps to swatch, like the ones from Waffle Flower? I have seen those, and I would recommend getting those as well if that's your thing. I uh, I swatch manually because it feels more free to me in a way, if that kind of makes sense. And I feel like I usually have a kind of a swatch book that I can switch things around in. So in the video you saw that I used a disc bound with the swatch book that I had made myself, that I had put together myself. Um, so that means that I'm not limited to what kind of swatches I do, and I'm definitely more of a organic kind of crafter, if that makes sense. I realize that that's not everyone's type of thing, but that's the kind of thing I do, because swatch making to me, it's not something you have to do for everything that you have, but you can. It's something that you can just do when you feel like doing something creative, but you don't have the creative energy. So, oh my goodness, I just switched over to the comment section, and I can see the comments just flying by. Hello, everyone. Hello from California. What do you think of the Concord and Ninth swatch dies? Oh my goodness, I want them really, really bad. I really want them. I really want them. Do you use a special black paper? Uh, yes and no. Again, I'm not particularly picky about my papers. I'll use whatever I have. I like using sketch black paper. I use black heavyweight cardstock as well, and I use the graphics craft film. It's called it's black, and that's really great for working with interference paints and alcohol inks as well. But yeah, it's I'm not picky about what kind of paper I use. I use what I like, and what I like in that moment might change from moment to moment. I have a swatch binder, but I never use it, so I don't think it's for me. So a swatch binder is something that I don't have for every single medium, but sometimes if I need to really learn about a new medium that I've used, uh, I want to really test it to the media, because that's my inner crafty mad scientist coming out, because I really really want to see how many different ways I could use this product. What does it do? What does it look like on black, on white, on what does it look like on UPO? What does it look like on graphic film? What does it look like on canvas? Because it can differ. It can really differ depending on what kind of substrate you use. I love this the tip of swatching on different surfaces, because the thing is that sometimes again, I talk about it in the video as well, that we sometimes box ourselves in, and we only use one particular technique or one particular medium or one particular substrate. So it's nice to sometimes swatch your item or your medium on different substrates, just to see what it does, because it can be fun to explore and just see. Yes, by that's just how it is, because I whenever I look at a medium and I took put together a video for it, I really want to push it to its limits. I really want to see how many different ways I can use it, and because I'm really passionate about teaching, I often learn a lot more about a medium when I'm putting together classes, because I'm really forcing myself to go through all the questions that I listed in the swatch book. That, well, what does it look like on black? What does it look like on white? Do I need to use specialty paper? What does it look like undiluted? Do I need to dilute it? Uh, what kind of viscosity is it? What thickness is it? Was it translucent? What's its opacity and things like that? Um, I need to make a swatch book for embossing powders. I think I would recommend doing that as well. And you don't necessarily have to make a swatch book. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Justine who shared it in a video. You can watch that back. And what she did was, I used to do that as well. Um, that you can cut out a circle the size of the lid of your embossing powder jar, and you can heat emboss that and then stick that directly onto your jar. So at a glance, you can see what the embossing powder looks like. Because with not just embossing powder, it's with your paint mediums as well. Because of the kinds of printers that labels use for mediums, what you see on the label might look very, very different to what the product actually looks like when you use it. So that's why I suggest doing swatching, but I'm not really militant about it, because I don't swatch everything I have, if that kind of makes sense. Because at the end of the day, it's supposed to give you joy. It's your hobby. It's not something you have to do. It has to make you happy. But swatching is one of the things that I absolutely love telling people to do, is that if you're feeling like you're low on creative mojo and you're not really sure what to do, so it's like one of those, go for the low hanging fruit is what I say, is just go for the thing that takes least effort but gives you the most joy. Because swatching, you're just sitting there using your mediums, you're learning more about it. And while you're learning more about it, I also suggest in the video that you can make notes as well. So you can have a dedicated notebook to your mediums, and you could put tabs in it, or you can make it as fancy or as simple as you want it. What is my go-to medium for card making? Um, so I use a lot of um, my go-to medium for card making is everything uh, but the kitchen sink. So I'm a mixed media artist. So I'll use pretty much everything that I can get my hands on. I use paint, I use acrylic paint, I use acrylic inks, I use dye inks, pigment inks, oxides, distress. It's the sky's the limit. I it depends on what I'm in the mood for, but and because I'm a mixed media artist, and sometimes because I have a cat, so cat hair often ends up in my projects as well. So it's still mixed media, right? Because it's different mediums. So I'll count that. My swatch, Beth says, my swatch books double as a reminder of what products I already have so I don't duplicate. So for me, that's important for me, especially with my acrylic paints as well, because I still have a big supply of my craft uh, quality paints, but I am also incorporating some artist quality paints into my collection as well, such as the golden, the liquitex, and they're absolutely gorgeous. But and when I go and I can order them online, but sometimes I like to go into an actual store and just just stroke all the beautiful medium jars and just go, my precious, I love you so much, come home with me. um but yeah, it's when you're there and you're really excited, you're like, toss everything in your basket. But if you have your swatch book or like a list to remind you of what you already have, so you can take that to the store so that you don't duplicate as well. Pets love to craft as well. Oh yes, indeed, mine does as well, and so does my toddler as well. What other tools do you use? Stencils and gel plates. So I'm uh, a mixed media artist, and I do a lot of gel printing as well. So with my gel printing, I have like a little swatch book, which where I have for the smaller gel plates, I have the shaped ones. I have them printed in a swatch book as well to remind me that these are the shapes that I have. Because sometimes I might just tend to go for the circle ones. For stencils, you can have a swatch book for your stencils as well. I don't, but I think that's a great idea to do. I have far too many stencils to do that. But what you can do is, if you don't want to create a physical swatch book, you can take photographs of your stencils and put them on. I believe it's Brandy's video is on using Airtable to organize your supplies. I could be wrong, but I think it is. It's worth watching. So you could take photographs of your stencils and use this as a kind of like a virtual swatch. When you're making cards, do you usually add a panel of mixed media to the card base, or do you create straight to the card base? Well, it depends on what kind of craft I'm at, the kind of mood that I'm in. So if I know that I'm going to be using a lot of layers, then I tend to use either mixed media paper or a really thick cardstock or watercolor paper panel, and then I will stick it onto a card base. Because sometimes what happens is the more liquid you add onto your card panel, the more warped it might get, which is easier to correct if it's just a panel, but might be more difficult to do if you just got a card base and you've been just adding like all sorts of 10 different layers onto it. My um, my style is more uh, clean and simple, not more like a mixed media with lots of negative space. It's not clean and simple, but there's a lot of negative space in it. So, but it does have a lot of layers. So I might do, my favorite go-to is just go for like embossing paste with embossing powder on it, and then heat set it using metallic embossing powders on embossing paste. Is just absolutely gorgeous. Susan says, I hope I'm not rambling too much. So many questions. When I made my swatches, I prepared half of the swatch on gesso and the other half on just plain cardstock. Because if you do any mixed media, oh, definitely, definitely for sure. Like I love using pastel ground as well as a base instead of gesso, and sometimes chalk paint as well. So I mean, the sky is the limit. Absolutely, the sky is the limit. It depends on what kind of paper you're using, how it's going to behave, what kind of mediums you're going to be layering on top as well. So these are a lot of things. So because then you will know, like for example, if a paint is opaque, then you know that anything that any color that you put underneath is not going to show through that. But if it's translucent or an interference color, paint, then it will pick up whatever is underneath. So that's the kind of things that you know because you've had a play with it. I tend to use clear translucent gesso to prime my card if I'm using a lot of mixed media. Yes, you can do that definitely for sure. Hi Karen. Um, uh, I'd be interested to hear what kind of brand do you use, because the kind of clear gessos I've used in the past are quite toothy, for lack of a better word. So I'd be interested to know what kind of clear one you use. How do you store your stencils? So I store my stencils in individual clear pockets. I don't know what you would call it in English. Please forgive me. English isn't my first language. Um, so you have these clear pockets that you can get, the ones that are sealed on two sides. You can get them from like a stationery store, and I buy them in bulk. And what I do is I cut them down to size. So I have a lot of the smaller 6x6 ones, and some of them are quite detailed, and I don't want them to get tangled up too much. So I have a little box that can fit those folders that I've cut down to fit the 6x6 stencils, and I have them in there. And they're not labeled or anything, but that way it stops them from getting tangled into each other. I hope that helps, Wanda. Uh, Color My Life app. Yes, I need to really look at that. I need to look at that app. It sounds really interesting. Um, but I think I might go for the Airtable as well. Um, so in my video, I talked about how you can play with your stencils and with your products. So just a reminder, like specialty paper. Like I did a swatch for my beloved pencils, my polychromos pencils. Oh my goodness, I love them so much. I'm just drooling just thinking about them. Um, and like the polycarbos, because they're an oil-based pencil, they will behave differently on different substrates. uh, Sometimes it's really a good idea to use like a super smooth paper or something like Bristol paper as well, and they might behave differently on that compared to your normal cardstock. And oh, thank you so much, Darla. That you're too kind. I do try and be clear with what I'm saying. Yes, clear pockets. That's exactly what they are. Clear pockets or clear pouches. Yes, Karen. Clear gesso does tend to get gritty, and I've yet to find a clear gesso that I love using. So most of the time, I tend to go with the white gesso, and my favorite is the Liquitex one, because it's like I'm like Goldilocks with certain mediums. It's like it's not too thin, it's not too thick, but it's just right. So the Liquitex one is my favorite one. Actually, you should try the Liquitex clear one as well. Polychromos are awesome pencils. Oh, definitely. Um, Polychromos, I absolutely adore those because you can layer them on top of acrylics as well, depending on what kind of brand it is. And they were pricey, but they were very worth it. So I got them for myself when I saw them on sale. And I think I have the 60, I think I have the 60 set. And then I got a couple of other skin tone colors as well because I do a lot of mixed media style girls as well. So I got a lot of different skin tones as well because the skin tones that were present in the set weren't quite my kind of thing. So I wanted different kind of shades as well. Um, you guys, thank you so much. You use golden clear gesso, some tooth, but not so much. I might try that as well. Golden are actually one of those great brands that you can get smaller smaller bottles to try if you wanted to, so that you don't have to invest in like a whole big jar. So you can just get a smaller jar just to try out. Um, I think I got one like a one of those sampler packs as well once, and it got me hooked on to like a lot of different mediums that I wouldn't necessarily use, like tar gel and I think pumice texture paste. I'm sure I'm getting the name of it wrong, but it was just such delicious stuff. I was like, oh my god, where have you been all my life? Do you store your swatch sets with the media or in a space reserved for swatches? Um, so if you watch my video, I have a mix of both. So like with my uh, because I do a lot of teaching for companies, so sometimes it requires me to keep sets of things together. So, like, I'll have a set of the old to new ink cubes, and they come in a clear clamshell packaging. And what I'll do is I have like a separate swatch for them as well, but I also have like a mini, really informal kind of just a piece of cardstock where I've just swiped the ink pad onto the cardstock just to show me what the color looks like. Because with dye inks, you can often find that what it looks like when it's just on will look different when it's dried completely. Um, and it's really amazing that what it looks like. It's not the company's fault. It's just a matter of how the labels are printed. What it looks like on the label will often be completely different to what it looks like in real life. So to learn about your products, when I get a product for the first time, I tend to just sit there and I make myself do swatches. Because often I will find, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I buy a product and you won't tell anyone, right? So sometimes I'll buy a product and then it will just sit there unopened. Um, so that's really bad. It's really bad. But that's why it's really important that I make myself open the products and use them. Like I was teaching a class, and I was supposed to do a class for old to new gouache paints. They're absolutely beautiful. The packaging is just just gorgeous, and I was speaking to someone and they said that they were terrified of opening the packaging because they looked so beautiful. I'm like, no, you did not say that. You just open it right now because these are products that are meant to be used and they're meant to be loved. They're meant to be opened, and you must get your hands inky and messy and painty with them because that's what they're for. Otherwise, they're going to dry. They're just going to sit there and they're going to talk to you and they're going to cry and make you feel guilty and say, "You didn't use me." So, but you must open your mediums. And if you don't think you're going to use them, try considering donating them or regifting them or check if they're dried. I like very much the swatch book you made with the disc system. Did you use a happy planner punch for that? Yes, that is a happy planner punch. You don't necessarily have to use a happy planner one. just make sure that whatever disc punch you get the discs that fit that system, because sometimes it can differ from company to company, if that makes sense. Are you familiar with the Derwent watercolor pencils? Yes, I am. What do you think about them on different types of paper? I love them. I love, love, love them. Are you talking about the watercolor pencils or the ink tense ones? Because I have the Inktense watercolor pencils as well as the bars. Roxy, if you could let me know. I have a lot of unopened ink pads. Swatching would be opening the ink pads. Risking it will dry it out before I use it. Uh, it will. It I've had ink pads that I've opened, but sometimes haven't used for years, because I've been paper crafting for almost 20 years now. And some of my ink pads are 10 years old and I haven't re inked them. And the good quality ones will not dry out. Trust me, unless you're leaving them out in the sun, or you've got extreme temperatures, they will not dry out if you've got the lid closed properly. Uh, Seventh generation rinse aid for dishwasher. It is a surfactant with. I have I have used rinse aid for the dishwasher, but I haven't used it in mixed media art. Um, I believe some people might use it in a mixed media technique where you can lift up magazine transfers. Is that what you're referring to? I'm sorry, not quite sure what you mean by that. I love the idea of crafting products looking at you with sad eyes. Yes, because these things, when you buy them, I know, I know. I understand because I've been there, that collecting your craft supplies and actually using them are two separate hobbies. But in my world, I have a small craft space, and pretty soon it might have to be a shared craft space because I have a little one now, and I just don't have the space to keep things that I'm not going to use, if that makes sense. So, as much as it hurts me, I don't keep things that I know. Now I get really real with myself, if that makes sense. That I know if I'm not going to use them, I'm going to donate them. And a couple of years ago, I put together like 5 giant bags of uh, craft products, and I donated them to a local school, and they were so happy. And it made me so happy. And I actually felt like a physical sense of relief. It felt like a weight had lifted off my shoulders. um, and it just felt so nice that the products that I wasn't going to use were being sent to going to be used by someone who absolutely loved them. The ink tense pencils, yes, I absolutely adore them. They're so highly pigmented. So I have both the bars and I have the pencils as well, and I love them. Um, they're really good for watercoloring as well, and I love how they layer on top of each other as well, and especially the bars as well, because you can, because they're bars, they're a lot more versatile. So you could do like pastel kind of sketching techniques with them. You can scrape them off and add them to like a misting bottle as well to make your own DIY mist. So there's just so many different ways of using them. uh Time to wrap up. So, oh my goodness, half an hour gone already. Right, everyone, thank you so much for watching. And I hope that you found this live useful. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone for participating, for being so chatty. I didn't even know where the time went. But take care and have a lovely day. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are.